I've got a series of bills here we're going to try to run through as quickly as we can, but we're not going to rush anybody. Senator Summers has agreed to defer to Senator Kirkpatrick on SB 213 to start with. Are you ready? You can probably, you told me that would be really quick. That'd be great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an issue that I just learned about recently, and the bill 213 is LC 600080. And this is about commercial cheating. Commercial cheating has become a widespread problem at all levels of education, including occupational licensing. This has increased in recent years, resulting in laws in 4 countries and pending legislation in a number of states. There are numerous examples of websites that offer to take your exam or online course, do your homework, or write your essay. This is a billion-dollar industry, primarily spread by word of mouth or social media sites. I've given you a few examples in your packet, along with a letter from the Credential Integrity Action Alliance, the group that brought this to my attention. You also have news articles about a teacher certification cheating scheme in Texas involving over 100 teachers, and a Florida case in which 3 people were charged with operating an unauthorized insurance agent licensing school and taking license exams in the applicant's place, involving 820 exams. This type of activity calls into question academic integrity, but also public safety. There was a case in 2014 of cheating by officers taking a nuclear safety exam. And there are other examples right here in Georgia. This bill is in the unfair trade practices part of our law, and it simply makes it unlawful for any person for a commercial purpose to provide a work product in a substantially completed form. The bill uses the civil penalties that are already outlined in 10-1-397 to be determined by the Attorney General. It's difficult to legislate individual behavior, but by putting these companies on notice that this type of activity is not lawful in Georgia, perhaps the test takers will find it more difficult to take a shortcut. I have spoken with USG, the Secretary of State, and the Department of Education, and they have not expressed any concern. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any questions from committee members? I do. All right, Senator, again, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Kirkpatrick, or Senator Kirkpatrick, said on the bill, have they, like Regents and others, looked at the bill and kind of the legislation on it, made sure they're, our technical colleges and everybody else is good with it?
I talked to them today, yes.
Okay, and they
had their lawyers look at it and didn't express any concerns.
Okay, thank you very much.
Questions? All right, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Make a motion to pass, Mr. Chairman.
Motion do pass by Senator Albers and second by the Dean of the Senate. Any further discussion or proposed amendments?
Yeah, that mean I can't cheat no more.
No.
You'll have to work harder at it, Senator.
Careful what you say. That might be a crime or something now. All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Same sign. All right, passes unanimous.
Thank you, Senator.
I think Senator Summers is waiting on a particular vote or something he needs. He also asked if I'd go ahead. I'll call Senate Bill 241, Senator Williams. Is this a relatively quick one? It seemed intriguing to me.
It should be. Could I sit here, Mr. Chairman?
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Senate Bill 241, it's in your folders. It's not a substitute. It's the original legislation.
Yes,
Kind
sir.
of refreshing to see.
LC number 550530. Gentlemen, does the sound of Noble, Georgia Tri-State Crematory ring a bell?
It does.
Well, this is to prevent that from taking place again in another method. Right now, the accepted methods of disposition of a deceased human body is burial, green burial, cremation, alkaline hydrolysis, donation to a medical school or other research facility. But this is something that I think 13 states have legalized this now. This is something that has been talked about for some time, and some states have done this some time ago, but it's just human composting. And, this is just another way, and this is tightening up and putting the guardrails. The Georgia State Board of Funeral Service didn't have any kind of licensure for crematories. And so that is what allowed Tri-State Crematory in Noble, Georgia to take place. Well, we're being proactive. We're not being reactive. And this is something that has been brought to my attention, that we need to go ahead and get in front of this before we have some more bad actors try to do something. And I'll be glad to take any questions.
Well, you're blowing my mind pretty good here, because I did not know this was allowed today.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
you're basically saying disposing of human bodies without burying them, like
Yes.
a vegetable compost pile.
Yes, sir. Well, it's much more sanitary than that. I have someone that signed up to speak, and he actually flew to Washington State and viewed their facility. And it's very hygienic. There's a place for families to pay their last respects, much as you would at a graveside chapel. But instead of burying, they're placed into a capsule and allowed to naturally compost.
Okay. So they're not mixed with other remains. They're
No,
just,
sir,
they're
there's-
put in a container.
It's just like a crematory. You cannot cremate more than one body at a time. You cannot commingle other bodies. It's one person in that one container capsule to be allowed to compost.
Okay. And that's being done now in a
In
sort
about
of-
13 different states, yes, sir.
All right. Senator, again, I know this caught your attention. I'll recognize you for a question.
It's really scary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't know we were, and I remember you brought a bill a year or two ago about dissolving people in the lye or
That was
something.
the alkaline hydrolysis,
Right,
yes, sir.
and this one, I'm thinking, okay, on 82, it talks about organic human reduction means the contained accelerated conversion of dead human bodies to soil. I don't know, I'm not a soil scientist, but I'm curious, if we do that, what happens to the soil? Do you take it outside and put it in your garden, or
You can, yes, sir.
is that where I don't know what the allowable things to do with ashes are when somebody's cremated with fire, or what happens to the water when they're done in the lye? What are those disposals for that?
The final disposition on someone cremated is actually the crematorium itself. So what you do with the cremains or ashes is entirely up to the family, the next of kin. You can send them off to have a portrait of the decedent painted. They'll actually mix the cremains with the paint. You can send them to a company that will stuff shotgun shells with them. And so on the opening day of dove season, you can scatter the cremains over the dove field. You can send them to a pyrotechnics place and have them stuffed into fireworks. Or you can scatter them, you can keep them, whatever you want to do with them.
So there's no difference in this soil and
That is correct.
could be put anywhere you wanted to.
This is hygienically, there would be no contamination, no germs, no bacteria. That could even be any kind of communicable disease could be spread or anything. But you're welcome to take the soil home, place it in your garden, or just like, you could with the cremains at this time. Yes,
And
sir.
just to be clear, this is not anything that any of these sadists around the world, like Hitler or somebody like that, nobody could confuse us with saying, hey, we're making it okay for, your facility means location where organic human reduction is performed. We want to make sure that's, we're not allowing anything such as these folks are there.
That's right, and the alkaline hydrolysis, actually, your municipal water system treatment systems like that because there's so much alkaline in that it actually reduces the amount of chemical that your water treatment systems are having to add to the water they're actually treating. So the water from that actually goes into the sewage system.
Well, I appreciate you answering the questions and making sure the rest of the audience understands what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
Y'all know how you get a song stuck in your head some days and it just won't go out? I got them bones, them dry bones in my head. And somebody's gonna have to, I got some preachers testifying later, maybe they can move it on.
Well, how about Randy Travis digging up bones?
Yeah, I like it. All right, well, we got the expert in the field of human composting. Si, is it Hain?
Humes.
Humes. Take the podium there, sing along with us, and tell us what you know. Just right up there be ideal.
First of all, I'm not an expert. I've just made the trip and spent the money to realize what we're actually getting into. And you mentioned a moment ago a soil specialist. Well, the company that I went to visit with is the pioneer of this process. The process was created by the good Lord himself. But she pioneered the steps to make it humanely done for humans. Let's put it that way. She hired a soil samplist first, a soil specialist first. So your body is placed into a vessel with wood chips, alfalfa, and other organics. It's placed in there, sealed up, under the bottom of you, on top of you, and it's sealed up. There are temperature probes that go into this because you want this temperature to reach between 141 and 161 degrees. That's what makes the microbials work. Once they go to work, they work for about 6 to 8 weeks. Then they check you, make sure that everything is dissolved or gone away. They bring you back out of that vessel into another container where you then sit for another 4 to 6 weeks. During that time, the soil is sent off to be tested to make sure there's no issues with that soil. It can be put outside, it can be put in your garden or wherever you want to be. There's a she's patent pending on several things that go with this, so I can't really tell you everything about the process but there is air that goes in that starts the microbials. There's an air scrubber that comes out the top that makes sure that you don't have any foul odors in this building. I was in this building with 35 people at the time that were in various stages of decomposition. It smelled like a feed store. That's all I smelled. Now, in reference to Senator Williams, what he said about we're trying to put up some guardrails, if you look back at the news, Colorado either 5 or 6 months ago raided a barn where there was 70 or 80 corpses in various stages of decomposition that was done incorrectly. They're just basically laying in a warehouse, so you can imagine the smell, and you can also imagine how inhumane that was. So by putting up these guardrails in advance, we stop that from happening here in Georgia. Because right now there are no guardrails. Anybody could do this in their own backyard and decide it's okay. And we could end up with a real mess if we're not careful.
I'm going to change the lingo a little bit. What I'm really hearing now is that we're talking about a very sanitary decomposition, natural decomposition of a body.
Yes, sir.
It's kept separate from any other human remains.
Until you're done and it becomes soil.
All right.
Then either you're given back to your family. I guess the amount that you'd be giving back would be equivalent to 1 cubic yard of dirt, which is about the size of the back of a pickup truck, I would guess. And you can put that dirt anywhere. Or in Seattle, you can be given to the land bank out there, and your soil can be placed out there amongst the trees wherever they're planting. And I guess we could do that in Georgia if we could find somebody that would take it. But there's also a donation that goes with that to the land bank.
All right. Any questions by committee members?
Mr. Chairman.
All right. I recognize you, Senator Summers, for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're against this bill.
I'm for this bill.
Okay, you're for this bill.
Oh, absolutely.
I
If you pass this
misunderstood.
bill, I will. If you pass this bill, I'm right here in Decatur, Georgia. I can see many of our people in Decatur, this would be right up their alley. But also I see a thing that, you know, we have many different religions, many different people that are here in the Atlanta area. I haven't approached any of them yet, but there are some religions that require their body to be given back to the earth. Well, obviously, we're running out of land to do that with. And this is a way that some of those religions could continue their own trust and traditions and continue to do this without taking up any more land.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Oh, Senator Brass, you're recognized. Senator Brass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This committee never ceases to amaze me.
Me either.
So what kind of market do we know what kind of market, how many people are out there wanting to do this now? Is there any idea? Like, are we looking at 5 a year, 10 a year? We
That's
have
the
no
magic
idea.
question, but I've just signed an affiliation with Recompose in Seattle, Washington, where we can test that theory.
Okay.
So we're going to, A.S. Turner's has signed up with them where we can take you into our care, get all the documents signed, ship you to Seattle, Washington, ship you back in 40 bags.
And so, just so I'm,
Bags of soil, potting soil.
If I could add something.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it that way. I apologize.
it's okay. Adds
Cremation
color.
is over 50% in Georgia as of last year.
Okay, that's
It's
helpful.
it's 75% here in Atlanta.
How long does this process take?
About 12 weeks total, from
Where do-
beginning
where
to
do you
end.
Where do you keep the body?
In refrigeration, just like we do now, but it goes into a vessel that all this process takes place inside a closed environment.
Okay. And just so I'm clear, under current law, anybody can do this anywhere right now.
I don't know of any law in funeral service that says that we can't, but I'm not going to start it until we have something in place.
And this says to do it, you got to get licensed and you got to follow these very
Right.
sanitary
We're-
procedures.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we're
That's-
going to regulate something that's right now unregulated.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. That-
Any other questions? All right, well, we got the big picture here. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Do pass.
Got a motion to do pass by Senator Summers, second by Senator Ginn, or was that Albers?
Albers.
All right.
Does matter.
Any further discussion or proposed amendments? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Once again, it passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator. All right, I'm going to recognize you for that question or speech, whatever you got, Lucas.
Senator, anybody complain about this process?
Has anybody complained about this? No, sir. They usually don't complain.
There's a clown in every crowd. Okay.
What about the cost of this?
Senator Harbison, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. What about the cost compared
It's
to?
probably going to be around $10,000, so it's not cheap. And that's
That
pretty
process
much,
costs $10,000?
uh-huh. So it's not, it's very much in line with a funeral, so it's not cheap. The cheapest method of disposition, of course, is giving the body away to a medical college. And there's people that actually do that. But your Jewish faith, they're not embalmed, and they're put in the ground in a wooden Orthodox casket, and everything's allowed to decompose just like a green burial. So,
How does that compare to a regular funeral cost on the average? Just
well,
regular?
on the average, a regular funeral may be $8,500 to $12,000.
Okay,
But,
thank you.
but the equipment to do this, you're probably looking at $250,000, $300,000.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, committee.
We've already passed the bill now, brother. Let's move on with it.
Good to me.
Good. All right. Senate Resolution 131, you can present from here if you'd like to, or wherever you're comfortable, Senator Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I thank you all for allowing me to have this hearing on Senate Resolution 131. If you don't mind, I'm going to give an open statement, and then we'll talk about questions or whatever.
That'll be fine.
In June of 2004, the Republican primary ballot had the question number 6 on it. This question asked the citizens of Georgia if they wanted the right to decide on voting on gaming in Georgia. when the votes were tallied up, every county in Georgia, 159 counties total, voted 80 plus or minus percent that they wanted the right to vote on this issue. Now, Senators, in my opinion, this is not a small sampling because over 600,000 people voted in that primary. I call this a mandate. It wasn't 51% or 50.5%. It was 80 plus percent. Every Republican senator has received a flyer of other information pointing out to the vote totals in their respective counties. In your folders, you will find many, many letters from counties, and I have lots more. And we're getting more come in every day asking for the right for this to be put on the ballot to let the people decide so that the funding of this issue will come back to the counties evenly in Georgia. Now, the Democrat ballot in June did not have this question, but I have talked with my Democrat colleagues, and I surmise if had they had this question on their ballot, the vote would have been even higher. We're talking about something all the time about doing something for rural Georgia and Georgia as a whole. And this, my friends, would be a game changer. This constitutional amendment would lift the prohibition that has held us back for so long. It gives the people of Georgia the power to decide whether they should regulate and tax casino gambling and sports betting while keeping revenue here instead of watching it flow to Florida, Mississippi, or other illegal markets. Now let's take that one step further. Right now you can go on your phone, anybody in this room can go on your phone, get on the Georgia Lottery website and app, and you can gamble 24 hours a day. I don't know if it's constitutional or not. I don't know if they need to say it or not, but I would think they do. But the lottery itself came under another area, so we have the Georgia Lottery to go buy tickets, for the big game. But you can gamble all day long. So you can also go on there and download slots from various other areas, and you can gamble on slots, Vegas casino gambling, on your phone. And there's no controls. There's absolutely nothing in there that gives anybody any tax revenue back to Georgia. So here's what we're talking about. We're talking about a CA that we would bring the tens of thousands of people that are leaving Georgia every month to go gamble back to Georgia and keep the economic benefits and the economic revenue back in the state of Georgia. This bill would bring activities into light, the bad actors out there, and allow us to manage them responsibly while unlocking the economic benefits. So let me tell you what the amendment does now. It puts the question directly to Georgia voters. This isn't about forcing gambling on anyone. It's about letting the people decide. Pass or fail, it's up to the people. I'm good either way, and you should be also. It established strong oversight through a Georgia Gaming Commission to assure accountability. It taxes gaming operations at 20% to ensure a fair contribution from the industry while prohibiting any taxpayer subsidies. We get asked for subsidies on everything. No subsidies here. It dedicates funding for addiction and prevention and responsible gaming programs, because if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. It also guarantees that gaming revenues are reinvested into all 159 counties, not just counties that may have a casino. Because if they have a casino, they're going to get a tremendous economic boom in their areas for the simple reason of people hired, money changing hands, property taxes, et cetera, et cetera. The way it works is the first $2 billion in revenue goes straight to the counties equally. After that, an additional $500 million a year for a decade to follow, and that's 10 years for those that were not sure about it, would follow. Now, this is real money, and real money that would help with infrastructure, economic development, and essential services in the community, especially in rural Georgia, that is needed most. Dispersing these funds evenly is the only fair way to do this. Counties that have a casino will get plenty of money, including the even split. Any additional revenues in the 10 years that I'm talking about, the decade I'm talking about, the $500 million, there'll be probably an additional $500 million can be used for anything that this legislature sees fit. For example, pre-K, other educational issues whatsoever. There'll be plenty of funds to go around that can be used to help. And I'm estimating another $500 million a year, and that's coming from the casino industry giving us those figures. Now let's talk about that word casino for just a moment, if you don't mind. The word casino seems to conjure up something evil, nasty, or other. Let me explain this to you. A casino is a business, period. You don't have to go in, you don't have to gamble. No one makes you go in, and no one makes you gamble. No one makes you buy a lottery ticket, but we buy lottery tickets every day, and we probably have $10 billion in revenue setting aside in the Georgia lottery right now for all people to use if they make the grades. Now, remember what I just said. All 159 counties get to share in that gambling effort. And you can call the lottery whatever you want to call it, but the lottery is gambling, period. It's reality. Now, I know some here on this board, some in this under this gold dome will have concerns about gaming. I know you may be opposed to gambling for personal reasons. I respect that. But let's be clear. This amendment does not force anyone to gamble. It simply allows Georgia voters to have their say, which they have requested. Remember, you and any citizen can go vote no in the voting booth. However, as senators and representatives, we are here to do what I hear every day almost. What are we here for? The will of the people. That's what we're here for, to do the will of the people. So don't take that right away from citizens who have asked for that right away in a massive way. Once or if the people lift this prohibition off our Constitution, we can come back and refine details through enabling legislation. But this amendment ensures that once and for all, the revenue is locked in for all counties. We can change the trajectory forever in the poorest parts of our state, who I, along with other representatives that are from rural Georgia, beg for everything we can get down there because our funding is so limited from the legislature. So let me put this in perspective. I close this out. As Senate and House elected officials, we are not voting here today to allow gambling. What we would be voting for here is to allow the people in this great state of ours to vote on the issue whether they want gaming removed from our Constitution or not. And if they remove the gaming prohibition on our Constitution as they've asked for, then at that point in time, we could have sports betting, casino gaming, etc. But it would be under the commission that this legislation would set up, a gaming commission, and it would be controlled by this gaming commission and, of course, the legislature at any time. My friends, I trust the will of the people of Georgia with this decision. I urge you to support and remember that every county in Georgia in the Republican primary voted 80% or better, that's your people that put you in office, to ask for the right to vote for this legislation and ask for the right to vote for gaming in Georgia. Mr. Chairman, I'll yield for questions.
I'm going to ask just a couple to make clear on some things. This references casino gambling and sports betting. Does it specifically exclude parimutuel horse racing?
I did not put that in there, Mr. Chairman, because I know the First Lady of Georgia has been adamant against horse racing, but I'm assuming, I was told by some lawyers, and you know how lawyers are, excuse me, no,
I know a few of them.
that once you lift the prohibition, that it could be allowed if the prohibition of gambling is it, but we could control it through the enabling legislation that I would ask you to help with if we pass it.
Second question, the tax rate's 20%. That's on both casino gaming and sports betting?
Correct.
Third question, you require all casino gambling to be within the 8 facilities that may be licensed under this bill.
And
what about the sports betting? Does that got to be on site in a casino, one of those 8 casinos, or online?
I did not specify that, Mr. Chairman, because I felt like that should be in the enabling legislation. I only specified the 8. I doubt there'll be 8. There'll probably be 4, maybe 5 in Georgia, because the market will take care of itself in regards to casinos. But I left the sports betting open because I know all your sports teams are going to want one. I truly did not know how to put that in without enabling legislation.
Okay, and then my final question, I'll turn it over. You know my passion for protecting against problem gaming and
Yes.
encouraging responsible gaming. As I'm reading your constitutional amendment, the first $2 billion that we recover,
Yes, sir.
which means $10 billion in profits,
Yes, sir.
we get $2 billion goes to be divided equally amongst each of the 159 counties.
Actually, 95% of $2 billion in the first 2 years would go to evenly with the counties. 5% each year would be held out for problem gaming and to run the program.
I don't think it reads that way. It makes it sound to me like you first give up the $2 billion, and then
I
out
will
of the
make
next
sure,
500
I'll make
million.
sure it's that way. I will guarantee I'll re-specify that. But you made sure that was done last time we talked about this. 5% will go toward problem gaming or any other directive. And then additionally, the $2 billion, out of the $2 billion, and the $500 million that follows 10 years thereafter, the same 5% comes out of that for the same issues.
Other members with questions? Senator Albers, you're recognized, and then the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Summers. Just a couple quick questions. You referenced enabling legislation. Typically, when we pass a constitutional amendment, there would be enabling legislation that goes with it, so people know from beginning to end what that looks like. Do you have that enabling legislation?
It's a great question. I'll tell you, Senator Albers, here's the deal. We've talked about this since I've been here for 4 years. It has been on the table, off the table, sports betting here, there, everywhere. Without lifting the prohibition of the Constitution, going through the effort of putting out enabling legislation is a moot point. All I want to do in this Constitution is point out that the counties get it evenly in my legislation. And therefore, if that's set up, if it were to pass, then I would have the enabling legislation that would come back in 26, or both of these come back in 26 to be voted on, and the enabling legislation to follow it. But without lifting the prohibition, it's not there.
If I could, Mr. Chairman, just a couple thoughts. Which then, by the time that would go on the ballot, if this were to pass, that means a whole new legislature can make up those rules. Nobody knows what that legislature may or may not look like for enabling
Well, they could not
legislation.
change the issue about the evenly split.
Understood. You also referenced 20%, so that's significantly less than the lottery. Why would we have a lesser percentage on casino gaming versus lottery proceeds?
Well, I checked on with many casinos in the states around us, and actually it's one of the highest. 20% is one of the highest issues that any casino is charged.
Are you concerned, though, that would take away from the lottery, which funds obviously the Hope Scholarship and Georgia Pre-K and other important programs?
Well, I'm not a gambler, but when it goes over 100 million, I do buy a ticket. So I wouldn't think it would take it away from it, but
One final question, if I could,
Go
Mr.
right
Chairman. I know
ahead.
you got a lot of bills here,
That's
and I don't
fine.
want to take up too much time. I'm a numbers guy, as you know. My concern is if you look at the last 10 years of all the major casinos, whether they be in smaller areas or big, large areas that have filed for bankruptcy, are significant. So the industry itself has seen a lot of pressures, and my fear is, are we working to create an industry that we know taxes public safety, we know increases human trafficking, we know increases crime, we know increases money laundering, things of that nature, that in other areas of the country are not doing well to begin with? And are we putting ourselves in a position that they are going to come back in 3 years and say, well, we need a tax break to stay in business?
Well, I can assure you this, you don't have to give them a tax break. That's, well, we can decide that, number one. Number two, they ask for no subsidies anywhere they go. They've not asked for a subsidy and will not ask for a subsidy. And number three, the areas that I checked with and around Mississippi, Tunica, and those areas seem to love the casinos because it drives business. They build ball fields, they build schools, they give money back to their communities. And if they go bankrupt, Senator, with all due respect, it's on them, it's not on us. I understand where you're coming from, and I know there's people out there that be hired and needing a job, but it would be on us.
And actually, some of the ones in Tunica are the ones that actually have gone bankrupt, including even the big ones like MGM and Caesars and Riviera and things of that nature. That's my concern is if they can't survive, then they'll be worried about what happens in
Any
those
other
communities.
questions from committee members? Senator Lucas, I'm going to recognize you ahead of the Majority Leader because you've been here longer.
Now, the question I raise is, I don't know if I'm willing to fall on the sword again. The House has not done anything, and we have constantly tried to work it out various ways on this, and they've never taken it up. So if 80% of folks on the Republican ballot say they want it, why is it that members of the House fail to take it up, period?
He's asking you.
Senator, I was told when I came to this esteemed group here that the Senate leads. And that's what we're doing. We're leading. If we get it passed up here, the House will take it up.
We've
And
been, with the thing about
I think
it,
I think there's actually letters coming from the Speaker's district asking him to let it go to vote.
well, I'm just telling you, we've been leading all the while. And it's just hard for this dog to wag his tail. I'm just, we've been doing it. We fought it, we worked it out, did this, did that, but never could get it brought up in the House to even get a vote on it. So I'm just telling you, I'm not willing to fall on that sword. No
Well,
more.
I'll answer this. This is the first time it was ever put on the ballot to be actually voted on to see if people wanted it.
Well, it had to go on the ballot just to change the Constitution in order.
No, sir, I'm talking about just to ask the question. That was just a question.
Well, it was put on the ballot, and you said, folks, 80% of them in
Voted
the
yes in
Republican
favor.
primaries
Yes.
said yes.
Yes.
And what I'm saying to you is, where are the folks on the House side? Because they are the ones that never would take it up.
Gotcha. Okay, Majority Leader, Senator Gooch.
I think everybody's questions were similar to mine, but if the House isn't interested, then I don't see why we would want to put our people through this again, Carden, so.
All right, we got 3 speakers. You got a question, Senator? Again?
I don't want to pick on my sweet mate, but I'm not the learned attorney, said that he was thrown under the bus. And I'm not sure if maybe we get help from legislative council or our chairman can help us, but when you put something in the resolution like this, the ballot question is the question that you have to go by. It's not all that other stuff is fluff. And for me, it doesn't say anything in the ballot question on lines 81 through 83 about spreading the revenue out over the 159 counties. And to me, I just would like clarification that unless it's in that ballot question, as my seatmate here at the table says, it don't mean nothing.
Had it been in the ballot question, Senator, it'd probably been 99% voted yes. That question in general. That's for the enabling legislation, in my opinion.
I'm just trying to make sure that I'm, from what I remember about ballot questions, unless it's in the ballot question, even the resolution language itself is, and I need help on that.
Well, that was a non-binding question, Senator, in the Republican primary ballot. It was a simple question to ask the fact.
Your resolution is requesting a ballot question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about that. Well, it's not. Okay, I know what you're saying.
And I'm not sure if Nick would address that or where that would go.
Well, that's exactly what came from legal advice, is that's how the question should have been asked right there. I can't explain why it didn't have all the parameters in there about how the money's divided.
All right.
I don't know the answer to that.
I can't help you either right now. Mike Griffin, you want to speak? You're listed as a speaker.
Mike has to go first.
He told me he wanted to be quick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Mike Griffin, Public Affairs Representative of the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. I've given you a handout sheet. I'll cut up with that about preaching. If I give you my sermon, you might just walk out the door and read it later. But I did give you the information I've got there, and just very quickly, I just point you to what it says. You know, the way these surveys have been done, even the one with the University of Georgia, they don't use the word gambling, they don't use the word betting, use wagering, or even in the term, we don't want the politicians in Atlanta deciding. Well, we are a representative republic, a constitutional republic, and it is the responsibility of the legislature to make decisions on behalf of the people, of which in 2022 in this committee, one of your senators or more, and Senator Cowsert will remember this, said, well, we can't put recreational marijuana on the ballot. It's too dangerous. Well, again, you have a responsibility to determine what is favorable to the people by way of health, public health and safety. And I've already seen the data. It's probably worse than this, but we'll be outspent 250 to 1 when it gets out there on the commercial side of trying to get it passed. And it's going to deceive and trick the people into thinking that this is something that's good, because it's going to make it look like all glitter's not gold. But it's going to make it look like that. And again, it will cost our government, for every dollar we raise, it's going to cost us $3 to $5 in social expense. So again, you don't even have to be the sharpest spoon in the drawer to realize economically that's not even good from that standpoint. And so anyway, as Georgia Baptist, we would recommend that you would not be in favor of this, because we believe it's going to be too detrimental. And most constitutional amendments do pass because they believe that the legislature wouldn't put it on the ballot if it wasn't something good. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Paul Smith, Citizens Impact. Try to keep it to a couple minutes if you will, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Smith, Executive Director of Citizen Impact. We represent churches and Christian schools across Georgia. Just 2 days ago, we had our Pastors and Ministry Leaders Day. We had over 100 ministry leaders from all across Georgia here. All of you were invited to our legislators' breakfast, and all of you should have received a copy of the historic Aiken Bible with your name engraved on it. I mentioned that just to make sure that you all did receive that. But also to say, we, as a ministry, we love the Word of God, we love the Bible, but when I make the case here against gambling, I don't quote scripture typically, I don't reference the Bible. I think it's bad for the state of Georgia. I think the evidence is there that the financial benefits are not what they're promised to be, that casinos, and by the way, we also recognized Mrs. Kemp at our breakfast for her work on human trafficking that morning. Casinos, all studies prove that this increases human trafficking, increases drug trafficking, other crime, cannibalizes businesses in the area. And we're starting to see study after study come out that things like sports betting are having a very negative effect on the people who participate. Not to mention, studies are coming out that show the money that's set aside by legislation like you're talking about for problem gambling does very little to make a dent in that problem. And I'm glad that the question about the ballot question was brought up. When folks were voting on that primary ballot, I was getting calls and questions from people who are adamantly against expanding any kind of state-sponsored gambling, saying, how are we supposed to vote on this, Paul? And the first time I heard that, I'm like, are you just joking with me? Are you just messing with me? Why are you asking me that question? The question was so poorly worded that they didn't even know how they were supposed to vote in order to vote against it and say no. So you may not take my word for it that it was not very well worded, but we all, no doubt all of you have heard about the questions on the ballot from your constituents year after year after year, how they're confusing and hard to understand. And I'm not going to repeat what my friend Mike said, but
right,
I believe that the question on the ballot wouldn't be a fair approach to it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Dr. Paul Kent, if you will, please present your views. And I hate to rush you. I see you got that big old thick book. We can't go through all of it. Give us about
Mr.
5
Chairman,
minutes if you don't mind.
I'm a retired professor of law, business, and economics. Saw all of this occur throughout the country. My colleagues and I testify frequently as expert witnesses under oath before Congress and state legislatures all across the country on these issues. This has been one of our big economics, law issues for years and years. And I applaud you, Mr. Chairman, because you and I have had a couple of debates on this, and I applaud the way you've done your homework. But I don't think that you've got this particular volume. But what Paul Smith just said, all of the numbers that he gave and some of the senators have given here today are absolutely correct on the negatives, the socioeconomic negatives. They are at least $3 to $5 in costs for every $1 in benefits. And we have volume after volume of this, hundreds of academic studies which indicate this. One which many of you have seen is the Illinois Law Review, which has 14 blue ribbon professors in it, including UGA, Terry College, Emory, Mercer Research, Georgia State University. 99% of academics agree on this. Credible academics agree that this is lose-lose for the states. And this thing is the biggest selling issue in the history of the University of Illinois Law School. Here's a third printing of this issue. And we just have a new one coming out from Cornell. I'm sorry, it's in the Cornell Law Review, but it's by an Emory law professor that reasserts the veracity of all these numbers that we've been giving on the socioeconomic negatives. And just a couple of quick things that you may not be aware of, but at these conferences here with the pastors, we have, Newsweek gets it. Most of you have seen this before. Here it is on the front page of Newsweek. We have kids being targeted on their cell phones by the gambling industry. And at these conferences here, right across the street by the pastors, I've heard pastors calling this a tithe of 10% of our kids to the idols of gambling. I think that's a very dramatic statement coming from the Christian community. And if you want to know the recent numbers, here's sports gambling, front page of the Chicago Tribune. Now, Illinois got sports gambling on June 28th, 2019. 2.5 years later, the Illinois Department of Human Services, front page on Super Bowl Sunday, says they now have 383,000 new addicted gamblers to sports gambling, plus 761,000 problem gamblers, costing the state between $5 billion to $13 billion per year in socioeconomic costs. Same Super Bowl Sunday again. Wall Street Journal says millions of people are being cheated by the sports gambling bookies. This is the Wall Street Journal, not myself. And a recent study just out from the University of San Diego on sports gambling indicating checking 700,000 online accounts, 96% had lost their shirts. 96%. Only about 2,800 were in the positive thing. And so what do we have across the country? We have, actually, there are states introducing, Vermont for one, legislation to repeal sports gambling. Repeal. This should be repealed. And COAMs and those types of gambling should be repealed. Mr. Chairman, I've given copies of this to your clerk, including a copy of Jeannie Seaver's statement from Moms Against Gambling that she gave to a Congressional Senate committee last December. My prepared statement's also there, and your clerk has those. So thank you very much for your time. This is lose-lose.
We always appreciate your input. Thank you for sharing that valuable information with us. Do you have any wrap-up questions?
No, sir. I have a wrap-up comment.
All right, wrap-up comment by Senator Summers.
I want to make sure everybody understands I can go or Clay. I don't get, if it passes or fails, it doesn't matter to me. It's the will of the people. They ask for the vote. And I don't try to do trickery. I'm not offering trickery. I'm going to read the question that will be on the ballot if it's passed. Shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to authorize the General Assembly to provide by law for the operation of regulation of sports betting and casino gambling activities in this state? Can't be any more clear and plain than that. Bottom line.
Thank you.
People have asked for the right. That's what I'm here to, the will of the people. Thank you.
All right, well, let's find out what the will of the committee is. Is there a motion to pass?
It's a hearing.
If anybody wants to move it, this is your last day to move it. Crossover day is next week. You got to be out of committee. Does anybody want to vote this out of committee? Do you want to make a motion to pass it? Or just you want us to hold your bill?
Hold the bill.
All right, then. You recognize that
Motion
kills
to
it
pass
for
it.
this session, right?
I'll make a motion to pass it, but I don't want to lose the bill.
Well, you're not going to get it on the floor of the Senate unless it passes out of committee today or tomorrow, and it ain't on there tomorrow.
Question's how you want to die. I will second his motion.
You second my motion?
I will second his motion.
I've got a motion due pass from Senator Summers and a second by our Rules Chairman, Matt Brass. Is there any discussion or proposed amendments to it? All right, all in favor, raise your hand.
Soil it is.
All opposed, raise your hand. Paige, you got this. Motion fails. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At least we had 3. Oh, thank you, baby. Parson Bill, we're gonna start again.
All right, y'all hang in here with me. I put mine off till after that. Okay, next we're going to take up Senate Bill 254. That's sponsored by me. I'm going to just give you a quick, brief overview. We learned as we were dealing with hemp products earlier this session with Senator Kirkpatrick's bill, where we addressed the problem of, in addition to Delta-9, which is the naturally occurring THC in the hemp plant, that there are also Delta-8, Delta-10, and other THC-type compounds that can get you high. And we noticed that we have limited some of the amounts that can be in products, but not the amount of milligrams in a product. So what's really happened is all they're saying is the THC infused into these hemp products has to come from a hemp plant with 0.3% or less of THC. It does not in any way equate to the amount of THC contained in the products. This takes that further by tracking the Department of Agriculture's rules and regulations to codify those on the amounts. They are slightly different because we've got a little bit of a change on those rules and regulations. I think it was back in December, late fall, Department of Agriculture came out with limits as to how much would be in gummies, how much would be in tinctures, how much would be in these liquid THC containing products. And then they had a feedback, and then in January proposed updating those amounts that could be included, and they went up. I have conferred with Catherine Russell and the Ag Commissioner to try to make sure I'm close to something that they can live with. I believe they're okay with this. If they're not, I hope they'll tell us. But to make it just short for you, what we've decided to do is limit to 10 milligrams of total THC per food product, consumable product, which would include like the gummies, or 150 milligrams total per container. So you could have 15 10 milligram gummies. The experts have told us here that 10 milligrams will get you high. So you can get really stoned if you were to eat the whole package by yourself. We also here limit beverages, and I have reduced the THC total there. I've got a can in my office. I'll show off to y'all tomorrow, but this limits these hemp beverages, we're calling them, they're basically THC infused beverages, to no more than 5 milligrams per 12-ounce container, and no more than 12 ounces in a container. There's one producer in Buford, Georgia, that makes these hemp-infused THC products that have exactly that amount. So I'm protecting them. There are people from out of state that are putting up to 60 milligrams or 50 milligrams. They're putting 5 milligrams per 1 or 1.5 ounce serving, but then giving you 10 servings in the can. So there are some that are highly intoxicating, but this was a number that the Ag Commissioner's comfortable with. At the highest proposal he had was up to 10 milligrams per 12 fluid ounces. And then finally, we apply to tinctures. Did not change the Ag Department rules and regs. 1,000 milligrams of total THC in a topical solution. And having no more than 1 milligram per milliliter in such of those type containers, up to 60 milliliters of liquid. You will see that we also followed Senator Kirkpatrick's lead, and we can address total THC, not just Delta-9. This would include all forms of THC in the products, which would be Delta-8, Delta-10, or any combination of that and Delta-9. So that's all this is doing, is taking a step further from the hemp products, how much THC they can have to be a hemp product, into how much in the various products that are sold to the public. I do have a couple of people signed up to speak, and I'm going to try to get this through today. So I will start with Kathy Windholt McDade, Georgians for Responsible Marijuana Policy. I don't know whether you're for or against. You didn't mark, but I'd like to hear from you. Yeah, if you'll hold, I'll take questions first. Senator Ginn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my understanding is sometimes we get sold a pig and a poke. I'm not sure where we're going to barbecue him, but my concern has always been the feds say that marijuana is against the law. I was all for and pushed and did everything I can to help with medical marijuana where a doctor says it's necessary and the things there. I'm a big proponent in that regard. What I'm reading about here, and one of the things that I understand from talking to some of the folks that are out here, is that today you can go to a store where they've distilled the THC. You can buy a product that if you drank it, you would be considered impaired to drive. And there's no roadside test to do for law enforcement to find out whether you're impaired or you had that in your system from 3 weeks ago. Will this stop somebody from being able to buy a product that would impair them and are driving impaired? Is this in such quantities so that they open up cans or whatever, however they're going to consume it, and they unwillingly know that I can imagine they drink it, just bought it in the store and think it's not going to impair them, but at the same token, the next thing you know is they're getting a DUI.
It would not. It allows them to purchase enough that if they ingest enough quantity, they can impair their ability to drive an automobile. Yeah. And they're playing a loophole from the Federal Farm Act, which allows hemp to be grown and sold in products that has a small amount of THC, but to be extracted or distilled, as you said, and put into other products. So we're trying to at least limit the amount per serving so that if you responsibly ingest this, you would not be impaired. But there is no guard against it other than banning the sales of these products, which I'm told some states are now doing, at least on the beverages. But this bill does not stop the consumption of THC if it's derived from hemp.
If I might follow up.
Sure.
On this, I know if somebody goes in, a serving of alcohol, it is based on the alcohol content in the particular stuff, whether it's beer, wine, distilled spirits, whatever. When I look at this, what would it take to have somebody? Is it weight-based for somebody as heavy as me versus somebody that's as light as my seatmate here? She's going to be impaired with a lot less alcohol than I am. But when it looks at what's going on with THC, is that weight-based, or is that, is there any relationship to weight, or is it just how much you've taken in? I don't know how that works, and if there's somebody that can testify to answer that, or do you know how much of a product they would have to drink or ingest to do it?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this, and I can provide this information. I had a doctor that spoke with me this week who is in the Physicians Recovery Project or practice, where when you have doctors that become addicted or impaired and they try to get them back in online, serving patients. And she says there is a prescription THC drug that has 2.5 milligrams. That is the dosage of prescription that is a safe dose. And she claims that more than 2.5 milligrams will affect you, but agrees for sure 10 will get you high. And that's why in these beverages, I'm limiting it to 5 milligrams per can. So I guess you'd have to drink a can or two before it impaired you, but and I don't know whether people do a full gummy or not, but that's not my expertise. Maybe some of these speakers can help us answer your questions.
Thank you.
Did I have a question from you, Senator Albers, or you just?
I think I'm leaning on the same question as Senator Ginn.
Just let some of these professionals tell us. Senator Summers, do you have a response or a question?
Mr. Chairman, I've worked with the Agriculture Department. I've talked with them many times. There's a hemp producing outfit in my district that produces the gummies and can produce the beverages. And it was the Agriculture Department under Commissioner Tyler. Harper said that they wanted to do 10% in beverages because of the reaction time in regards to drinking. If someone drank a 10% beverage, as they were drinking, they would slowly get their high, their buzz. But if it was reduced down, they would drink 3 or 4, and by the time they got their buzz, it'd be basically, as you say, impaired. But the 10% would give them that buzz without them having to drink others. That's why I think he put 10% into the in his rules and regs to allow that much in 12 ounces. So I'm concerned if we're taking that away, are we going to be making them drink more to get their high, their feel, or whatever? That'd be my concern on the 10% down to 5%. So I just
Okay, it's milligrams, not percentage.
milligrams.
Go ahead, you got something to share with us there, Senator Albers?
Yeah, I just did a quick search, and the general consensus seems to be that 2 to 3 milligrams of THC is equivalent to a beer or hard seltzer or a glass of wine. So actually 5 milligrams would probably make you right on the edge of being over the legal limit if you compared it to alcohol.
Okay.
That's one.
All right, sorry for that detour. Kathy, tell us, introduce yourself and your views on the bill.
Possibly defer to my co-board member from Georgians for Responsible Marijuana Policy to speak first.
That'd be
I've
fine.
got very short comments to follow up with him. Is that all right?
We're going to move you to the bottom of the line then. All right,
Okay.
Greg Raduca. Ashland Swan will be next to get ready.
Dr. Greg Raduca with Georgians for Responsible Marijuana Policy. Thank you so much for this opportunity to testify. GRMP is a nonprofit, and we are in strong support of this very important bill. So thank you for introducing this bill. I have become aware of some problems that I wasn't aware of before today that I do want to share. And that is, it concerns the number of products that are described in the rules currently of the Department of Agriculture that have weight limits. And those are 4 products, as has been mentioned: tinctures, gummies, topical applications, and beverages. What I've learned, what I had suspected for a time, is that there could be an unlimited number of types of products allowed to be sold in Georgia as long as they can be inhaled, ingested, or absorbed. But that leaves a whole lot of room for different kinds of products. And that leaves room for vapes, for example. So vapes are not prohibited in the rules, not prohibited in the law. And so e-liquids that go into these vapes could be sold legally. So unless we develop there is no exhaustive list. There is no complete list because theoretically it's unlimited as to the number of products as long as they fit those 3 methods of consumption. So this presents a real problem because in your bill and also in the rules, you notice that weight and volume limits are decided by the product itself, and they're unique to the product. Different kinds of products need different kinds of weight and sometimes volume limits if they're a liquid. So unless, like the Georgia Medical Cannabis Commission, the Department of Agriculture or the General Assembly might decide on a finite list of, well, yeah, these 4 products, these 6 products are the ones that may be sold. We're really going into no man's land here with there are no maximum weight or volume limits set for e-liquids, in other words, vape products. And that's really dangerous. None of the tinctures are not supposed to be inhaled. And one could draw a possible conclusion that because tinctures are in the rules that an inhalation is allowed, that perhaps tinctures should be inhaled. I know that was never the Department of Agriculture's intention, never the General Assembly's intention, but somebody, who's not acquainted might inhale a tincture and do damage to themselves.
Let me stop you there for just 1 second.
Yeah.
We set general policy here and sort of minimum standards in code, but we have delegated to the Department of Agriculture this rulemaking authority, and he's on this. I mean, he is very actively investigating, learning, ruling, and regulating. And this does not prohibit that department from adding additional rules and regulations as the product lines evolve, and we anticipate he'll do that. If we will fund him enough to enforce, then I think he is very well educated and prepared to respond to changing times.
That
So
would
I
be,
don't think that this means everything else is legal. We have deferred to him or directed him, delegated to him the rulemaking authority as he feels is best for Georgians. So I have good confidence in him, and that this is setting the floor, so to speak, that he can tighten up anything he wants to. But go ahead, give me just a couple more minutes, and we're losing our quorum here.
well, that would be terrific, especially to put weight and volume limits on products that can be inhaled, because that's a very serious form of consumption that can do more damage than possibly other forms. One thing is that the legal limit that is set in the rules can go by what the Fed's limit for consumable hemp products is. I think the General Assembly tried to take that out, but in the rules, it says either the 0.3% or what the feds may pass. And there's been a lot of talk at the federal level of possibly upping that level to 1% from 0.3%. So I would hope that we might look at the legal limit staying at only 0.3% and not going to some possible federal level if they should choose to raise it. And then just lastly, SB 33 has been mentioned. I hope that SB 33 can make it through the legislature so that we can look at more than one type of THC, because there's so many kinds that get people high.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, appreciate you being here. Let's try to wrap this up. Mike Griffin, you got anything to add to this? You hadn't already told us about the other sins that we're addressing here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mike Griffin with Georgia Baptist Mission Board. We do support your legislation, Senate Bill 254. And again, we talk about, to me, the greatest things that are most important in life is loving God and loving your neighbor. And I really believe that being concerned about public health and safety, it shows our love for God by loving our neighbor and being concerned about these kinds of issues. And we certainly appreciate these types of regulations to help in the public health and safety issue. And so thank you for your bill, and we ask the committee's favorable support for it today.
Thank you. Ashland Swan, sorry I skipped over there.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ashland Swan. I'm here on behalf of SunMed CBD. We are the largest CBD retailer in Georgia as well as in the country. So I want to say by saying that I appreciate that there is concern for the health and well-being of Georgians. Obviously, that is a big part of why I got into this industry, because cannabis has helped my family, including myself, immensely. But I think that we are looking for a problem where one, frankly, does not exist. Let's be clear, cannabis in any form, including even high-dose THC products, have never killed anybody, not a single person. People don't usually even after ingesting incredibly high doses, even need to go to the hospital. Compare that with, say, several glasses of tequila, and you will most definitely find yourself probably going to the hospital. And further, let's look at even a lot of the political events that we all attend, those that take place during session. Alcohol is free-flowing. I have seen as many important legislative discussions take place over a glass of wine as not. And so I do think that while the word intoxication is scary, sometimes it's a little bit of a false boogeyman. Bottom line is that this legislation will harm farmers, it will harm consumers, and it will harm small businesses. And those are the things I think that really need to be at the front of our minds when making these decisions. People who want THC will gain access to it, period. Now, I've heard this logic spouted by people who are in favor of deregulation of guns. They say that anybody who wants a gun will get access to it. Why not apply that same line of reasoning to THC then? So all legislation like this does is effectively drive consumers underground to a market that is unregulated and often unsafe. You have no idea what kind of additives are being added to the illegal THC market. We are actually seeing people die of fentanyl overdoses from fentanyl that is added to illegal THC. This is not protecting the health and well-being of Georgians. It's also causing serious access issues for those people who need those products, such as veterans, disabled people, and other people with chronic health conditions that rely on access to safe THC products in order to manage their chronic conditions. And hemp farmers, and I mean, really, let's just be real, Georgia farmers generally, it's hard being a farmer. My husband has been a farmer. It is not an easy life. Putting more restrictions on the people that put food on our tables and medicine in our hands is not what we need to be doing, especially in a space where we pride ourselves at being the state that is best to do business in, especially for agriculture. I think that runs entirely contrary to our entire messaging around business and ag. And then, of course, there are companies like mine. So yes, obviously I'm here because this is going to negatively impact our business. Let's be real about that. But I would say first that our scientists would seriously debate some of these supposed effects and levels of intoxication that are due to certain products and at certain amounts. To the question that one of the senators asked, yes, weight does actually have a pretty big impact on how much it impacts you, and also the duration of use. So if you have been a long-term cannabis user, you will absolutely not be impaired to the same degree that somebody who is a novice cannabis user would be. Same as any other kind of medication that is meant to manage pain or anything of the like. So the idea that, you will a patient could drink one drink and then become a serious public safety risk is honestly a little bit overblown. And then the other thing I'd like to point out is that, companies like mine, not all companies, unfortunately, we work overtime to provide safe products. We do rigorous third-party lab testing. We have an entire fleet of scientists. And a lot of companies, quite frankly, do not. There are some bad actors in our industry that have painted a rather unfavorable opinion of some cannabis products. But I think that, as with anything, that's why we have to crack down on the bad actors and empower the good. All this does is drive the bad actors out of the market entirely. And a company like mine, we simply could not produce like Georgia-specific products. You see that across industries, right? That when you have state-specific regulations to an industry, that often tends to decrease that industry's participation in that state, even if they're from that state. People move and change business all the time.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
So the Department of Agriculture already has rules that say you can have 10 milligrams per gummy and 150 per packaging. This does not change that rule. Are you not able to do business here under the current rules proposed by the Department of Agriculture?
Well, I will admit, current Department of Agriculture regulations have already harmed our business. That is definitely true. There are several products that we do sell nationally that we are not able to sell here in Georgia, and it has already harmed our business. But to the understanding of the people at headquarters, this could also affect some of our tinctures as well, that it's not just because of the milligram per restrictions could also harm that. And I think another negative externality that we have to consider here too is my understanding is that many breweries currently produce these products that would not meet the standards of this current bill.
The only one I know of in Georgia meets these standards.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I've been to many breweries myself where I see products that I know would not meet this current legislative
Senator Albers
standard.
has a question for you real quick before we wrap up. Senator
Thank
Albers,
you,
you're
Mr. Chairman.
recognized.
Thank you for your testimony. You said something, though, that struck me. You said that nobody has been to the hospital for consuming THC?
I don't believe I said nobody. I said that it's incredibly rare. Certainly no one has died. Yes, that is true. I think the only way you could die from THC is if somebody dropped a brick of it on your head.
Okay, so just tell you by just cursory research, thousands and thousands of people have gone to the hospital. Some people have died. And it has been from students to adults to senior citizens to children.
And
so
you-
I would encourage you to do just some basic Google searching before you say things like that.
And I would push back on that. We have had our scientific team. You have to understand, we have a team of multiple researchers at our headquarters in Tampa, and they have vetted all these things. Now, yes, people have died from consuming THC that is laced with other additives, such as fentanyl, or even, the solvent residue in some products. Solvent residue is a huge issue. And yes, that has actually caused hospitalizations and even deaths. So yes, has consuming a cannabis product ever led to death? Yes, but has THC intoxication ever caused a person to die? My understanding is that you would have to literally consume the equivalent of half of your own body weight in order for that to happen, which, can't say personally, but I think that is pretty well impossible. But I would still say that it's nowhere near alcohol is. And I don't see the bills about alcohol the way I do see the bills about cannabis.
Okay.
And in fact, I know many users of cannabis who choose to abstain from using alcohol for exactly that reason.
Got it. Thank you for your comments. We got 5 minutes left in the room.
Absolutely.
So we got your gist, and we appreciate you sharing with us.
Thank you so much.
Catherine Russell, if you'll come forward, please. Catherine, I hate to pick on you. You didn't sign up, but I need you just to answer 2 questions for me. 3, really. I met with Catherine as we were drafting this, and you just wouldn't believe how much time the Ag Department has spent learning how other states are handling hemp products and how best to do it. And she was our, what do we call you, our legislative counsel for this room, or our research assistant? You did all the background work as we went through the first iteration of this legislation. I just want to make sure where you and Commissioner Harper are. I know you're the brains in that operation, but and let it work. Are you fine with us including Delta 8, Delta 10, and all forms of THC in your limitations, is like we did on the SB 33?
So firstly, I would like to thank everybody for having me. I'm Catherine Russell, the Department of Agriculture. We really see ourselves as an agency who carries out what is directed to us from the legislature, first and foremost.
One thing I wanted to make sure in my communications with Commissioner Harper was that I didn't impose something on you that became impossible to enforce, like if we listed 55 ingredients or cannabinoids, you can't test for those. Am I right that you're equipped now to at least test for Delta 8, Delta 9, and Delta 10 with your current setup?
That is correct.
Okay.
Actually, our rules currently require that any COA test for a number of things beyond Delta 9, and Delta 8 and Delta 10 are both currently on that list.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be an expansion for the producers to have to get additional testing.
Okay.
And that is readily available. The testing, the cost of the testing for us would probably go up some.
Okay. How much more money you need? I wish we had Blake Tillery on this committee. We'd see what we could do. We got time in the 26 budget.
So, I mean, I'd have to, I'm guessing
I'm teasing,
here.
you don't have to tell
Okay.
me, but I do want you, you do need to communicate
We
that
do.
to us. And
We need that money.
In your rules and regs, you've broken out your limits on the amount of THC in products by the type of product. In consumable hemp products, what was your first rule and regulation this fall? Am I right that it's 10 milligrams per serving and 150 per container?
For the gummies, and ours was structured just a little bit differently. We said 10 milligrams per serving and 300 milligrams per package.
You started at 150 per
I think
package.
we'd started at 150. We had a couple of rounds, and the feedback that we received from the community was that some people were taking their hemp product and for pain and joint issues, and they wanted to be able to purchase a 30-day supply at a time.
Okay.
So we considered
So
that.
I'm cutting them down to a 15-day supply, but this is where y'all started in the fall, and you're proposing to increase it.
That's right.
Okay. And then on the beverages, this bill says no more than 5 milligrams per 12 ounces, and you can't have a package bigger than 12. What's the department's rule on that now?
The current rule is 10 milligrams per 12 ounces, or the proportionate equivalent.
Do you know of any Georgia producers putting more than 5 milligrams of total THC in a 12-ounce package?
Off the top of my head, I only know of producers in Georgia at 5.
Okay. And then we talked about the topical applicants. Y'all have, those are the creams and lotions. Your current rule is 1,000 milligrams of total THC in those products. That's what this bill did. We're just codifying your current rule, okay? And finally, on the tinctures, Am I right that you allow up to 2 milligrams of THC per milliliter?
That's correct.
And this reduces that just to 1?
Mhm.
Right. And I could get into the science behind that, but is this offensive to you or undermine your regime, your
Our
rules?
job is to be an agency that effectuates what the legislature asks us to do.
Is anybody using tinctures with hemp products anyway? How do they take those? Is that an oil that you take or something?
I believe that they can be administered sublingually, where they just drop it in their mouth. There are probably some folks who drop it in water and drink it that way, but I think it's intended to be administered with a dropper into the mouth.
All right. Thank you. Senator Ginn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Russell, help me out. If I walk into a store, I see a barrage, in convenience store or any other store, I see a barrage of energy drinks and all kinds of things. And I'm getting where I don't see quite as well as I used to. And I'm thinking, when I pick up a can of something in a store that I think's an energy drink, and I do too much of this kind of stuff, but so if I go into a store and get an energy drink, what kind of warning label or what is there on that label to let me know that it may have THC in it? Because I can see somebody unbeknownst going into a store and, if this is just, okay, it's on the shelf, I don't know yet. If they check IDs, you have to be a certain age. What are the warnings that a regular citizen doesn't go drink one of these, get behind the wheel of their car and realize that, wait a minute, I'm impaired, now I'm getting a DUI?
Sure. So currently, in both the law and in the rules, there's a requirement that any THC product have a symbol on it. We adopted the ASTM symbol. It's a yellow triangle with a cannabis leaf on it, and it has to be, I believe, 3/4 of an inch high and wide. And stay that proportion, and unless it's larger than the actual container. So you ought to be able to pick up a drink, and it should have that large yellow triangle for easy identification. Beyond that, retailers are not allowed to sell any of the hemp products to anyone under 21, and their signage is required, and what you would expect for those retail restrictions.
And the total amount, like I'm looking, I believe that Senator Albers passed something out that he pulled right off the internet, and it's a product called Wink. They sell a 2.5 milligram, a 5 milligram, and a 10 milligram can. And I don't know if on there if it tells you how much THC you're ingesting when you do, but the 10 milligram can would be the equivalent of 4 beers. And I think for most people, 4 beers would get them a DUI.
Sure. So this is an area of the industry that hasn't been well developed. You can develop a tolerance to consuming cannabis products just like with beer. And so what I've heard from users that consume on a regular basis is that a 10 milligram drink for them has very little effect, and that you build a tolerance faster than alcohol. Now, that's just anecdotal evidence that was provided. So and there's very little research available to look at and to create a standard.
One more question, because I'm not a expert on it, but with alcohol, you can't change your body mass. If you're drinking alcohol, it's a percentage of what's your blood alcohol content. Doesn't matter whether you're tolerated or not. If you're above the 0.08, I believe, as a regular citizen driving a car, you can be charged with easily you fall under DUI. Even at 0.05, I think you can be charged as impaired. But with the situation here, when you say they may be impaired or they may not be impaired because of their immunity, is there no other test that can be done on that?
Well, actually, just read an article yesterday about a blood test that's being developed that they believe will be useful in doing intoxication tests. So
Thank you.
I can't speak any more to it. I just read the article quickly yesterday.
All right, show and tell. I do. I don't have any glasses. You got to chug it out of the can. Go ahead, Senator Summers, your question.
Mr. Chairman, in relation to, and Ms. Catherine, in relation to what Senator Alberts was saying a while ago in regards to people all over, he referenced his computer, people all over, to the other speaker. I mean, Agriculture Department has nothing to do with alcohol, but I mean, it's probably killing or causing a lot more trouble than this is right here. When you said 10 milligrams, I remember we talked about this over and over and over again. It's the fact that you have the 10 milligrams that allows people to have the issues, if they have hurting issues or pain issues or whatever, those 10 milligrams get them there. If you put it 5, they have to drink much, much more, and then they're way over where they should be. That's why I believe it was promulgated to make it 10 milligrams in the drink. Is that safe to say that?
It's not exactly the methodology that we used. Like we started with the drinks at the 5, and one of the kind of compelling arguments that some of the folks that came and testified to us said, look, why would we have a 10 milligram gummy and a 5 milligram drink? So,
Okay.
that was nice and reasonable, and so we adopted commonality. But we did recognize that 10 milligrams was the commonality across most states for gummies.
If I may follow up, Mr.
All right,
Chairman.
last question.
The 10 milligram, the gummies, from what we were told and what we researched, you can eat 4 or 5 gummies before they ever kick in, and then you're just out there. The milligrams in the liquid or the drinking liquid actually went to work faster, and I think that's sort of what we talked about. So I don't know.
Well,
I'm
personal
okay with banning
experience.
alcohol. I mean, I'm okay with banning alcohol. I have a problem with it. You know, it causes problems too. But I just
All right, show and tell. This is berry ginger fizz. It has marijuana leaf on the outside to let you know it has THC. It says it's from 0.3% THC by dry weight.
Do we try it?
Nope. And on the can, it says 5 milligrams, Delta 9. 1 can equals 1 hit. Onset, 10 to 15 minutes. High lasts 45 to 60 minutes. And it's a 5 milligram container. This is not made in Georgia. This is the Georgia product I talked about, Blue Roo, high seltzer. On the outside, it says 5 milligrams Delta 9 THC and 10 milligrams CBD. Uplifting vibe, mango. And it carries on and tells you on the outside that this is 12 ounces in this product, and they tell you that this is the 5 milligrams of Delta 9 THC in it. It doesn't tell you how high you get or whatever. Here's another one that's Crosstown Brewing out of Memphis, Tennessee. In the Clouds, Stratosphere, non-alcoholic peach tea, 10 milligrams THC. So this is double my Georgia product. And it goes on and on. I mean, we got one of them, High Spirits, cherry limeade, 50 milligrams THC in 12 ounces. I don't know what else it says, but all buzz, no booze. And it has the marijuana and THC products on it. And here's a off-field Movement Made Happy, 5 milligrams THC, 10 milligrams CBD, 10 milligrams CBG. And I don't know what this is, Catherine. You might 100 milligrams L-theanine, something like that. And it has all the warning things on here. It's got all kind of stuff in it. And my problem is we're not regulating these, and y'all are trying to. You've passed regulations, and all I'm trying to do is codify that. And on one, I went down below you. The others, I don't go up like your second level does on the number of servings. But am I right that we're pretty close to what the Ag Department thinks is the right limitations on content? Okay. Does this restrict you from adding new rules or regulations as new products come out, or maybe even tightening them up below the statutory minimums?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't believe so.
Thank you, and I apologize for blindsiding you, but you are so knowledgeable, and it does never hurts my feelings if you were to say, Ag Department would really prefer you get out of our business, or you're contradicting something we're doing, because we don't want to be working against each other.
Well,
Okay.
Thank you so very
you.
much. And Commissioner Harper is very passionate about taking care of this issue and regulating it in a way that's safe for consumers.
He texted me a picture the other day of some product he was destroying,
Yeah.
where he had found some illegal products in the store, so he is enforcing. What's the pleasure of the committee on this bill? You got a question, Senator Brass?
Yes, sir. So of the products you showed at Show and Tell, only one of those you can get in Georgia? Is that correct?
Made in Georgia.
Made in Georgia.
Made
Can
in
you get
different
all those products in Georgia?
I don't know. Our local liquor lobbyist gave them to me as Show and Tell. So they found them somewhere. I think so.
Can you, can't you get some of those at like gas stations?
That's only place pretty much. You could get them in grocery stores. They cannot be sold in a liquor store.
So you can get all those in a gas station.
You
Anybody
go-
can get them.
If they carry them.
If they're 21.
If they're 21.
Anybody at 21 can walk off the street and go in there and get those drinks
That's
and
right.
get high.
Right now. Now, some of these are in violation of the newly enacted rules and regulations of the Ag Department if they truly are in Georgia stores. And
Okay.
that's why they're getting this, they're educating. They're putting that out to let the retailers know. They're licensing retailers, and they're telling them this is all you're allowed to sell. Now, I can answer Senator Ginn's THC question because I do some DUI defense. You can be DUI alcohol, and that's where the .08 comes into play. That's grams per milliliter of alcohol. If you're under 21, it's only .02. A lot of people don't know that. In UGA, they learn the hard way and take care of them. It is also illegal to be DUI drugs, and there's a long list of drugs. THC is a Schedule I drug, which is the highest penalties. It is a felony offense to possess THC. Somebody was talking about vaping. I've had college kids vaping, and it's THC, and they go to jail with the big house for a felony, whereas if they had a bag of weed that was less than an ounce, it's a misdemeanor. In a DUI drugs case, it is any amount of THC in your bloodstream. It doesn't say. Some states have nanogram limits or whatever, but in Georgia, if you have THC in your bloodstream and you're driving and the officer thinks you're impaired, then you're DUI drugs. Same penalties, and that is one scary part about this is we are selling products that one swig can get you DUI, but we're also right next to it selling 6 packs of beer that can get you DUI too. So it's all about, do you drive after you take these products or not? And I don't know the science on exactly how much THC it takes to impair you, but we're zero tolerance.
Can we get you off from going to jail by having those products out here at the meeting today? Because for me,
I'm not drinking.
You said, but possession of THC.
That's one heck of a question, Senator.
Because they have
These
THC
people that
in
are doing medical marijuana, they're violating federal law by possessing THC. It's a felony. It's not enforced. It's not violating the Georgia law because we legalized it in Georgia law if it's for those medical purposes. Federal law hadn't changed. It's a Schedule I controlled substance. And I think this could be enforced that way. But the exception is, well, this isn't really marijuana. This is hemp-based. I don't see the federal law distinguishing between THC hemp and THC marijuana. It's just the source is regulated. And that's why the dry weight is is derived from a product that has 0.3% or less, but they are extracting the THC and distilling it, as you say. But here, Senator Brass, you may be more of an expert than I am if I'm
I thought
incorrect.
hemp got pulled off the schedule altogether about 5-6 years ago.
Possession of hemp is legal. Possession
I
of marijuana
believe
is not.
it either went Schedule 5 or maybe taken off schedule altogether.
Hemp may have, but THC hadn't.
is the federal law.
But it's derived from hemp. Hemp, which is your difference, what you stated earlier.
Yeah.
But hemp not being on the would not be against federal law.
And that's the question.
Which hurts my argument tomorrow or one day when I have my medical marijuana bill. But I think hemp is off, and I think that's the difference.
This is, you talked about locals. This is Scofflaw, which most of us have probably been to. They're not too far from the Capitol. They offer a combination sweet tea half lemonade in 5 milligram, 10, and 25 milligrams.
That's not even 5 miles from
So we're faced with a policy decision. Do we want to, as a policy, limit the amount of THC per serving of the various types of products that this bill does, and do we want to put that in the code or not?
That's fine.
Is there?
Motion do pass.
I got a motion do pass from Senator Ginn and a second from the majority leader. Any further conversation or discussion? Senator Jones, you are on the poison. You're an ex-prosecutor. I'd like to know what's happening in that little head right there. What do you think?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that we also do regulate alcohol by volume too.
Sure.
And that's one of the keys, that we're actually doing a regulation here, which will actually kind of hopefully keep people safe. I think personally maybe misconstruing it. We're actually kind of reining in the Wild Wild West instead of creating the Wild Wild West. So I'm 100% in favor of this, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, you got that, Senator? Thank y'all. You articulated what I wished I could have said that clear earlier. It is an unregulated, and we are just now starting to do it.
Right.
And we're working in tandem with the Department of Agriculture, and, you know, we may live and learn. We may learn that these are unreasonably low, that this is not dangerous, as one of our speakers says, or we might find out that, good Lord, we are putting way more per serving than is a responsible consumer could do. I have another bill that we don't have time for. Senator Huffstetler, I'm sorry, you always seem to be last, but you've passed more bills through my committee than anybody else this year. All right. We're going to meet tomorrow immediately upon adjournment of rules. So after rules meets tomorrow, we'll meet in this room right after rules. We're going to start. We're just going to go to the last two bills we didn't reach today, and then we'll go into the agenda that I've got set for Friday. If there are any authors of the bills that don't want their bill passed, tell me. We will put you off the list or put you to the bottom. I don't think we have the room more than an hour and a half tomorrow, and everybody wants to get home, so there's very possible. We're not going to hit them all anyway, but they're mostly bills that were filed late in the process, so must not have been top priorities for people. Everybody, thank you for attending. Drive safe. Be watch what you consume, and we are adjourned.